All right, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Escape Podcast, and it's Monster Month.
I'm Brandon Karloff.
I'm Josh Lebowski.
Lugosi. All right, we're off to a great start.
Hold on. What am I? What's my name again?
Lugosi. You're leaving that in now.
Yeah. Okay. We're talking about Night of the Creeps from 1986. Brandon, have you ever seen it?
Yes, I have. This is one that you've mentioned a few times.
Yeah,
you were interested in covering.
It was written and directed by Fred Deckard. Now, Fred has worked on a few things that you might know, a few things we covered. He's worked in various capacities as a writer or director on things like House, Monster Squad. He did a few episodes of Tales from the Crypt, RoboCop 3, Demolition Man, Lethal Weapon 4, Titan AE, The Predator, and he's also served as a writer and consulting producer on Star Trek Enterprise. There's a Star Trek connection right off the bat. Shazam!
I was going to ask you too. So you said The Predator?
The Predator, the Shane Black 2018 one, yes. Okay. Which Shane
Well,
Black actually has a cameo in this one. It stars Jason Lively as Chris Romano, Steve Marshall as James Carpenter Hooper, Jill Whitlow as Cynthia Cronenberg, and Tom Thrill Me Atkins as Ray Cameron.
I'm sure that's going to be one of your trivia points.
Yes, it is. I had a reason for doing that. It has a 76% critical score and a 70% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. All right, trivia time. Many of the main characters are named after well-known horror directors, including George Romero, John Carpenter, Tobe Hooper, David Cronenberg, James Cameron, John Landis, Sam Raimi, and Steve Miner, as well as the Corman University, which is named after Roger Corman. Jason Lively and Jill Whitlow were both in Ghost Chase from 1987. The words "Go Monster Squad" could be seen written on the bathroom wall, which is a reference to Monster Squad, directed by Frank Deckard. Tom Atkins says this is his favorite movie that he's been in. The phrase "thrill me" is said 5 times in the film. JC is the only person who talks after being infected, no explanation given. And lastly, the 2007 film Zombie Town was marketed in some countries as Night of the Creeps 2 Zombie Town. And that is it.
Okay.
So, Brandon, when did you see this movie?
I don't know. I don't remember the first time I saw it. I do remember maybe about 5 years ago or so. I was really I was trying to find every little gem of the 80s I could.
So that means I've actually seen this movie before you did.
Probably.
Shocking. Okay. All right. I caught this movie. I don't remember if it was the Sci-Fi Channel at the time, but I must have just been watching something else and it went off, and then this came on and just kept watching. And so, yeah, that was probably the early 2000s, I'd guess. Like 2000, 2001 probably. Okay.
I wasn't aware that you were very familiar with this.
Yeah.
I thought it was a movie that you had heard of and you were interested in. Or was that Night of the Comet?
No, I don't know much about that one. I've probably seen this maybe 3-5 times, something like that.
Okay.
Not too many times, but enough times. Do you remember the movie Slither that came out?
Yes.
I remember when I first saw that, I thought that was like a reboot or sequel or some kind of loose connection to this.
It was heavily influenced by this movie.
Yeah.
Which is funny because this movie, in a way, is the ultimate homage movie. We brought that up in Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which this has a connection to. The same girl is in this as in Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Which girl was that? The main girl?
In this one, no, she's not the main girl, but she has blonde hair.
Okay.
I think she's the one that
like the 50s girl?
No, in the 80s. She lets the boyfriend in after he becomes a zombie. She's like, hey, so-and-so's here to see you, and she doesn't really notice.
Okay.
But she's the main girl from Killer Clowns from Outer Space. She's also in Weird Science. Tom Atkins, real quick. Are you very familiar with him?
I mean, I've seen him. I know he was in, what was it? One of those creep show movies, I think. Mm-hmm. And I know he was in Lethal Weapon. Very small part, but he was in it. Yeah, I mean, I've seen him around. I can't.
Yeah, he's been in things. He was in The Fog. But I think what I know him best from would really be like Halloween 3. He was the star of that.
Oh, okay.
One that we'll probably talk about one of these days. A lot of people are in love with Tom Atkins, for culty B movie horrors and all that. And he really does a good job in this movie. But continue.
It's funny because this movie takes some alien sci-fi stuff. It mixes a serial axe murder. It mixes zombie movie stuff. It mixes different kinds of horror.
Yeah, I told that to Christy. Had never seen it, and I watched it with her, and I explained it to her that this movie is really out there. It combines a whole bunch of stuff. So when the movie starts off, it's a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Those aliens are almost adorable in a way. The only problem I have with those aliens is just like the look is frozen on their face.
Yeah.
I wish they were articulated.
When I first saw the movie, I didn't get what was really going on. I thought it was that the alien that's running away was actually trying to get this weapon essentially out of their hands. I didn't realize was that he was actually infected. That never dawned on me until more recently. Like,
did they say that?
Well, no, he's got the glazed look. He's got like the white glazed look in his eyes. Like,
I never noticed it.
You know, where I thought like maybe he was trying to, you know, they were trying to develop this bad thing and he was like against it and trying to jettison it into space and get it away from them and out of their hands.
They never explain it, but I mean that's a pretty good theory that he was infected.
The only thing is he runs fast. Now, maybe it affects their people differently than us. It's probably us putting way too much thought into it. But
that could be your theory. Your theory could be he was trying to get rid of it because it's too dangerous. He could have been just a weirdo that wanted to free it for whatever reason.
I mean, again, putting way too much thought in it. I don't know why they could have just shot it, you know, with a missile or whatever right then and there. It wasn't moving that fast.
Whatever he was doing with it, they were, in the end, trying to get it back.
Right, but I'm saying as it was...
Yeah.
You know, they could have just shot it, but we wouldn't have a movie.
In a way, that opening is almost in itself... When did The Thing come out? Did it come out after this or before this?
I think before. This is 86. I'm almost positive The Thing was 82.
Okay, so the Thing almost has a similar opening. And doesn't Predator kind of have that opening, too, where it starts off in space?
Yeah, I mean, very briefly, yeah. I mean, they show, like, his little pod or whatever, his shuttlecraft coming,
And like you were saying, it starts off with that sci-fi opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a silly tone obviously going on in this movie, but yet it still does something I think a lot of the movies that came out around its time of this genre didn't do, and that was they developed their main character better than I think a lot of the others. What do you think about that? Detective Cameron, specifically. I'm talking about him.
Well, he had an arc.
Absolutely.
And even though I wouldn't even... Is he the main character? Or is he like...
It almost seems like he is. You would argue it's supposed to be Chris, especially, and maybe even JC, but I think you would almost argue he is the main character.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. We're introduced to him first as a young cop, trying to tell his...
Did they do voiceover so it was his voice?
I didn't notice that, and I didn't read anything about that, so I'm not sure.
Well, it jettisons that thing into space, and then it goes down, and it's 1950s Earth. The film goes to black and white at that point, actually.
Yeah, and I thought that was a really cool idea. Sometimes I don't like things like that. Usually I don't like when they mix color and black and white together, kind of like... I know it's like an epic film, and it's a really crazy comparison, but Schindler's List way, it's black and white, but then like the girl's coat was red or whatever.
The Wizard of Oz.
See, no. The reason I kind of am cool with like this type of movie where like it's literally a whole segment is black and white and then it becomes color. Same thing with The Wizard of Oz. I'm saying like in Schindler's List they literally have everything black and white, but then there's one girl walking around with like a red coat or whatever. You know what I mean? Amongst everything else being black and white. I don't like that.
Okay.
Again, I know that's a crazy...
Well, that's a terrible movie anyway, so...
Shut up. I thought it was funny, right at the get-go, the aliens are, you know, they made it a little alien language, and they put captions on it, but not in English.
Subtitles were in some alien language, too.
Almost as if to say, like, wait, turn it up, what did he say? Like, you know...
In some ways, like, it really doesn't matter what's going on. It's more fun just to come up with the idea in your head.
Right.
But here we are in 1959 Earth, they're playing the doo-wop music, there's kids at Makeout Point, and then this is like you know...
Oh, yeah.
the classic 1950s Invader from Space type of theme where, you know, the kids are at Makeout Point.
Johnny,
they see something fall from the sky.
Yeah, he brings her to, you know, his best girl, Beth,
right,
to Makeout Point. They get a little tap on the window from a young cop, which was cool. They established even before that.
Right.
Where,
you don't realize it at first.
Yeah. At the sorority house, one of her girlfriends, because, you know, like, oh, she's not going to date a cop. And then later when she's at the, you know, the overlook, this young cop taps on the window and says, hey, you know, don't you know there's a serial killer on the loose? You need to get out of here, which was her old boyfriend she obviously broke up with. I don't know why exactly, they don't say, but that is our main character, right, Detective Cameron.
And he introduces So it starts off in space as a sci-fi movie, and it becomes a 1950s like sci-fi drive-in type style movie.
Well, with also like a slasher. That's where it's like a slasher film briefly. He introduces
the slasher element because there is a crazed maniac on the loose with an axe.
Which, honestly, I liked that part so much, I could have sat through a whole movie on that. Like a 1950s slasher film.
That's an interesting idea, to create like a 1950s, like have it be as authentic as possible to a 1950s movie where everything was super cheesy, but then have it have kind of more modern stuff in it. That would be...
Yeah. I actually have another point to bring on that, but I'll wait till later.
Okay.
So they see what they think is a meteor go right overhead, which is amazing. No one else seems to really notice it, or well, I guess maybe some of the other cars, people in the cars did.
I have a feeling maybe some of the people in the other cars were busy doing other things.
I don't know what you're talking about. Regardless,
well,
Johnny,
everybody goes up to those points so they can play a Game Boy.
Oh, yeah. I think that would be Tic-Tac-Toe at that time. So, yeah, Johnny and Beth, again, that's not their real name. I'm making up names. Go out there to investigate. She's not really feeling it. She wants to go back because she's nervous about the several warnings they've gotten on the radio.
Yeah, and it's funny, like as they're saying it on the radio, she's right where they're talking about.
But I love the way they did it. They said, they think he's heading west on
Route 66.
Route 66 toward Corman College, because you see a sign in front of them, but you can't read it. She hits the headlights and like, oh crap!
It's Route 66.
Yeah,
and then there's a little sign for the college.
I like. She says, Johnny, come on, I'm getting lonely. I'll let you feel it on my breast.
Yeah, you can even fondle my breast, she says.
Oh, yeah.
And of course he doesn't do it. Weird.
He can't hear her. So, got two things going on. He's, meeting his demise in the form of what we find out is a slug in this canister that...
We'll call them brain slugs.
Sure. It's able to jump. It jumps. They're very good at hitting their target. He jumps right into Johnny's mouth. Right about that time is when, the serial killer is sneaking up behind Beth.
Right. And I like the effect on the brain slugs themselves. I think it's very effective, but very simple. Like, if you look at it, it's obvious how they did all that stuff. But I think
around a string, probably.
If it looks good, don't mess with it.
Yeah, I didn't ever look like, oh, goodness,
Yeah, it looks cheesy, but like not in a terrible way.
Johnny gets it through the slug. Beth gets it by the serial killer. And then we cut to 1986, and it's Pledge Week. And we meet our main characters.
Yeah, and this is where it becomes another type of movie, one that became popular in the 80s.
Movie, yeah.
Yeah, one of those 80s college romp movies, Animal
Which
House.
still has the overlay of this sci-fi slasher zombie movie. So, we got Chris and JC, our main guys. And what's funny to me, JC... I don't know if they directly just copied, but he reminds me of so many other tropes of 80s movies. Do you know who Fisher Stevens is?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Fisher Stevens was in My Science Project, and he was like the same character as this guy, JC was, Steve Marshall. And also you got like Ducky from Pretty in Pink. You got Robert Downey Jr. in Back to School. Like basically like you took those three guys and it's like a diet version of this. I'm not saying he's nearly as good as any of those, but he's that kind of guy where he... makes jokes all the time, maybe sometimes when he shouldn't. He's
sarcastic, making fun of the popular.
Exactly, like has the guts to, because like, okay, Robert Downey Jr. in Back to School, he's like, it's not like he's the cool kid per se. He's not in the cool kid club, but he's not in the dweebs. He's like
not
this
like a
weird in-between guy. He's like his own thing.
Like he's on the outside looking in, and he's not, he's totally himself. He's not afraid to just tell
what
people
Ducky
what he's
is
thinking.
in Pretty in Pink. He's kind of this, he's cool, but he's not the cool kid. It's weird.
He's
Very carefree. Yeah, he's got the leg crutch things.
Like Jimmy from South Park, because he's got they're attached to his arms. And he can swing his legs around.
Which they didn't really give you particularly a reason why he had those. The only thing that was kind of
there's any number of reasons. He could have been born that way. But, he could have been in an accident.
No, I'm not saying why he even has them. I wonder, you almost wonder why in the movie they decided to make this character.
I heard somebody talking about this, and it actually was an interesting point that they made, where if you look at Chris and JC, Chris is kind of crippled emotionally.
Okay.
Where JC is crippled physically. That way they kind of balance each other out.
Okay, fine.
Because JC really is he never feels sorry for himself. He's outgoing, he's witty, he's fun. And then the other guy, there's nothing wrong with him, but he's always down on himself.
Right. I was going to say the only time it pays off is when he later is able to walk, although we don't see it.
Okay, yeah.
Onward. So, Girl After My Own Heart, you see Cynthia drinking a Pepsi, and it was it. It was over. I was in love.
What are you talking about now?
She was drinking Pepsi, man.
Is that what's happening?
She drank a Pepsi.
Oh, I thought I had my Pepsi shirt on for a second.
Shut up. All right, continue.
So Cynthia, she's kind of cute. She's more like the girl next door type
cute,
of thing.
Yeah. No, she's very cute.
She's dating Brad, the biggest doofus.
No, hey, it's the Bradster. Get it right.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's the Bradster, man.
Yeah, he like talks to himself like in third person. Hey, it's the Bradster. He's got a personalized license plate on his. I can't remember if it was a Ferrari.
And him and all of his buddies
nice
are
car.
like those stupid jocks.
Yeah, and it's yeah.
They're all in the popular male fraternity,
which I thought was funny. JC says to him, "Why don't you go practice goose stepping?" Because he has like the blonde hair again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
and he's a total like d-bag type of character.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
If you looked it up in the dictionary, his picture would be there. That's exactly.
Yeah. All right, but anyway, yeah, he's the Steve character in this movie. Or the Brad.
It's not the same actor.
No,
like,
but I'm saying it's
they're
that
similar.
It's basically that guy.
Yeah.
You know, Chris wants to try to talk to Cynthia. He doesn't have the guts. JC does it on his behalf, and he basically finds out she indeed has a boyfriend, but he doesn't tell Chris that because I'm assuming he wants him to try to go for it anyway. Mm-hmm. Maybe just even though if he'll get rejected, just to kind of maybe just you got to get your feet wet, you know. So
he's kind of a turd of a protagonist.
Yeah. So ultimately, he decides, Chris, that if we join a fraternity,
she's probably the type of girl that would be into dudes that are in fraternities. It happens to be Pledge Week.
Yeah, so I'm going to try out fraternity, and JC, just being a good friend, just goes along with it. And they are tasked with, why don't you go, to this place, get a dead body, and throw it on one of our rival, fraternities. So they go to this very clearly some kind of scientific research lab that happens to be close enough, and there's no security. They just walk right in the door.
Yeah. They were told to steal a dead body.
Yes. So that's
for some reason. Like they thought they were going to have.
It was to throw on the lawn of the rival fraternity.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yeah, they find this place, and it so happens to have the guy that was attacked by the slugs from the 1950s in it.
I'm calling him Johnny.
So
yeah. So the one character he puts in his his pin, but he forgets the last digit. He walks away to call his friend to look up the code for him, and it happens to be 0, which is the button JC just tries to, thinks to push.
You haven't seen the Deadpool movies, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I don't care. You can spoil it if you want.
Okay, well, in the second one, there's like a device that they have.
Okay.
You've probably seen it. Like it's in the X-Men cartoons where they put the device on their neck to like inhibit their powers.
Oh, okay.
I believe that's what's happening at the end of the second one. And one of the characters, Domino, she has the ability of just being lucky, right?
Okay.
That that sounds like a weird power to have, but they do it perfect in the movie. It's actually really
basically
cool.
Just everything works out for her?
Yeah.
Okay, so she could punch in a pin and
at the end of the movie,
right.
They're trying to figure something out. They need a code for something.
Okay.
And she says, try 7. It wouldn't just be 7, so they do it and it works.
Okay.
Like it's a funny moment.
Okay. So they sneak in and they basically, realize, wow, this is more than just a dead body. This is something special, something unique about this guy. He's in basically a refrigerated coffin, if you will, like a see-through
thinking of like
coffin.
Wolverine in his tube.
Yeah, you could say
or
yeah.
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. So JC pushes the, release button and it basically opens it up. They start to carry him, but he grabs somebody's arm or something. They freak out, they drop him and run. Right at this time, Mr. Scientist guy is coming back. He doesn't try to stop him. He doesn't.
They knock him down. He's just like,
yeah. He gets knocked over, but he doesn't call security or nothing. He just goes inside. Yeah. So now basically, I think the slug. I don't know if it's supposed to be the same slug or if it's incubating more slugs in his head. I think that's what it is. Jumps out into Scientist Man. All right, so then we get, the dead Johnny walking around. He's going to see, I guess has enough of his own mind. He's going to basically the sorority house where Beth lived.
Cynthia.
In his mind, he's still thinking of Beth.
Yeah. So, it cuts to the scene, they're in the sorority house, all the girls are getting undressed and stuff like that. You actually see Cynthia.
I was surprised about that.
Because you don't normally see the hero girl.
But
they do. They show her.
I was surprised.
So there's some boobs. Johnny's looking through the window and his head explodes. Which, to be fair, that's what happens every time I see boobs to me.
Yeah, he taps on the window, but he's got this really sinister grin. like it was actually pretty creepy, and it worked because like it almost seemed like everyone else was pretty much mindless. Like they were just almost like you know, like those ants that when they get that certain fungus, they go to a certain tree and they just bite into it as hard as they can. Like it's mind control. Okay, forget it. But anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Okay, that's in the Ant-Man movie.
Yeah, so she sees, you know, his head open, like his don't explode, his head like open, almost like it was like a valve or something. It opens up and a bunch of the slugs come on out. And what's funny is I was noting later, that's around about the time is when she decides to break up with the Bradster, and he knocks over JC, you know, kicks him.
Yeah, he kicks his crutch out from under him.
Yeah, really jerk move.
Like,
and
wow.
I know. And I thought it was funny. I was like, you know, she's already seen this guy at her bedroom window with his head open up and these slugs come out, and she doesn't seem very traumatized. It wasn't until like later she even says anything about it.
I think maybe she was in shock. That's why she was afraid people would say she was crazy, and she didn't really want to talk about it. Then she's the more I think about it, the more I think like I actually saw this.
See, I don't know.
She explains it to the two guys. She explains it to JC and Chris, and they're both kind of like, "Ooh, she's crazy."
Right.
Chris doesn't care because he has a big crush on her.
Right. I mean, he does give this look like whoa, but yeah, he's still willing to
console her as soon as she puts her head on his shoulder. Like,
put your head on my shoulder. You hear that song a couple times in the movie. Okay, so it's about this time we meet now the adult or middle-aged version of
Tom Atkins,
Detective Cameron. Which we first meet him. It's clear he's having a dream. We see Beth, his girlfriend, come out of the water, because he's like having this daydream. He's on a beach, and they did
I thought that dream was really cool too.
Yeah, they did it a reverse thing because when she comes out, her hair is dry. So
it took me a second. I'm like, wait, how'd they do that? And I was like, oh, reverse. Yeah, but it looks cool.
So yeah, he dreams of his girlfriend. I think he sees her out in the water, and then she is it that she goes under, and then comes up as a bloody mess or whatever, and then he's flashing back to the night of the murder, only he's his age now. He sees the Axeman chopping her up, and he's holding her hand, a severed hand in his hand, and then it becomes a shotgun, and then and he's also wearing, I think on his other side, it's is it the corsage like a guy would wear, to take the girl on a date. He's wearing that on his police uniform. You're kind of finding out he's carried this his whole life. That was his high school sweetheart, and she was murdered, and almost like he felt like, he should have been there. If he was with her instead of Johnny. Why would it turn
into a shotgun, Josh?
Why?
Yeah.
Are you wanting me to give you a real reason or just an explanation?
Or are you planning on getting there later, or do you want to just...
Why, do you have a theory?
No. They tell you what happens. It's just later.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, okay. We will get to that. But anyway, right now, all we're getting at is, he's carried this burden for the rest of his life. He's very jaded,
very traumatized.
Yeah, so
you can tell he's been struggling with issues. He's one of those guys where you think he probably just goes home, puffs on a cigar, and has a drink before bed.
But what's funny is he's almost not. It's almost like a slight Amish thing going on, where he's kind of kept his way of living to a degree, kind of like the late 60s. You notice his cop car is like a classic car.
I would say Amish should say maybe he's...
Well, what I just meant was Amish, that they're
not keeping
in that
time frame, kind of, in a way.
Well, like I said, Amish. Not literally doing the Amish way, but keeping with an older style. He wears the trench coat. He uses a revolver. He drives this, classic police car in the, 1980s.
So how do you feel about the way Tom Atkins plays this character?
I think he actually got better as they went along. I almost feel like the first scenes where they show him and they're like, oh, we got two bodies at the morgue. This was the scientist guy and, of course, the, what did I call him? Johnny. Mm-hmm. He gets there and there's only one, and he's, just kind of being...
Johnny's missing.
Yeah, he's kind of being a smart aleck a little bit.
Yeah.
I almost feel like
Detective Cameron. No, Bullwinkle Moose.
Yes, he always has something like that. He uses Rocky and Bullwinkle or Little Rascal references and, Richie Rich or whatever. So it seems like I almost felt like they maybe had an idea what to do with him, but maybe what if we took him this direction? Because I feel like he actually, you see his development even better as it goes along. It just makes me wonder if this was like a scene before maybe they quite figured out how they wanted him to be. I don't know. Maybe I'm just seeing things.
I feel like he's got one of those guys. He's got a chip on his shoulder because he's struggling with his past and stuff. And then as the movie goes, it kind of opens up to Chris a little bit, and that causes him to break down a bit.
Yeah. So he brings Chris and JC into questioning. They admit, yeah, we went there, we got the body out, but we got freaked out, we dropped it. Nothing else happened. And the janitor, he basically admits, like, they saw us running away, screaming like banshees, but he didn't see us, carrying a guy out. Mm-hmm. So he kind of knows, like, okay, yeah, so I guess he learns to kind of somewhat trust and feels like, I almost wonder if he's like, it's getting to a point so much where he can't live with the fact that he let her down, that he, never had a life with her. It looks like he never married, that he's kind of like just on his way out. Like he kind of almost is a dead man walking.
Yeah.
And so he confides in Chris, which I thought that was really crazy. I was like, he brings this kid over and he right there admits,
this is a few scenes later though, isn't it?
This is a little later. So, okay, yeah, I mean, what else is there to say at this point? Like, they knew that Chris was missing. I'm sorry, they knew that Billy, the body, was missing. Scientist guy is now dead. So there's been a few weird happenings around.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, eventually he keeps running into Chris. He brings him back to his apartment and tells him that on his off hours back in the day, he tracked down the serial killer that escaped from the mental institution, killed his girl, and he killed him.
Now, wasn't the serial killer at that point also kind of zombified?
No, he was just a regular guy that he killed, and he basically, at one point they show he goes to the sorority house and they're building on to the house, and he says to someone, you don't think much of it, what are they doing here? Oh, they're making, an addition for the den mother or whatever they call her. Okay, whatevs. And then later you find out, well, back in the day there was nothing there. It was just an empty lot, so that's where he buried the guy.
Yeah, blew him with the shotgun, and then
is crazy to me because, Billy at the beginning went to look for the canister out in the woods. You think that would be the more proper place to bury, but whatevs. Anyway, so yeah, he's admitting to him that, he did some vigilante work and went out and killed this guy. Which, I mean, the guy was a serial killer anyway.
Doesn't even Chris say, like, why are you telling this to me?
He does, and I'm thinking, like, he was a serial killer, escaped mental institution person. He killed 4 orderlies and your girlfriend that we know of. I mean, I don't see why that would be...
Well, vigilantism is still pretty
okay,
illegal.
But, I mean, if you catch a guy...
He still murdered somebody.
I mean, okay, but if you catch a guy, I mean, he could just say, like, yeah, the guy was coming at me with an axe, I had to kill him. And, that way it's just, okay, we got the guy.
Well, to be fair, he's probably pretty wrecked from finding pieces of his girlfriend all over the road.
Probably, but I'm just saying...
Once you kill somebody, you're probably not in the best frame of mind.
Well, when I killed the first guy I killed, I was pretty with it.
Well, that's during a Michigan winter, though. Everybody expects that.
Hey, I love winter. All right. What happens next, Brandon? I feel like I'm talking
well, at this point, the slugs are starting to get to people, right? JC ends up getting it.
All right, so let's talk about that. JC, he's using the bathroom. He hears someone come in. You kind of hear, I think, a thud.
He was an Asian guy, the janitor?
The janitor, yeah.
The one that kept screaming Banshee?
Yes, he found that very amusing. So, yeah, you hear, like, the thud, and you see some slugs, like, running around.
Mm-hmm. And then there's magically a box of matches sitting there.
Yeah, I was like, what made him think, like, oh, I got to get these matches? Mm-hmm. And I thought it was hilarious. He's reaching for it, but then a slug, like, whizzes by his hand. I was like, dude, you have a crutch. Use the crutch to at least draw it in a lot closer to you. But whatevs, he uses, his hand. He finally gets it. And it seemed like almost there they were trying to emphasize, because, like, when he lit the whole box of matches up, he puts it down, the slug runs right at it, but then it kills him, which is almost like, I thought they were trying to say, like, it was attracted to light or fire or heat, but then once it hit it, it killed it.
I got the impression that it just kind of ran into it, but maybe there was something about it that attracted to it. But either way, fire is bad for these things.
Yeah. So JC, while he's there, one crawls up his pant leg, he starts running for it, and one goes in his mouth.
Yes.
So...
And they start to get other people, too. There's a cat that shows up in the movie, and
right around this point, the den mother is in her almost finished house, and the boards start, shaking, and the serial killer who has been infected, because you see that they go into the cemetery. I don't know, we probably failed to mention that. These slugs head for the cemetery, and now some of the dead bodies, I guess, are
now
it
goes from sci-fi to 50s B-schlock to... And you know what?
What?
He even says that, Tommy Atkins, when he walks into the laboratory, he's like, what is this, a bad B movie?
Yeah, and there was references
I thought that was hilarious.
Like he, I would rather have a alien probe my head than than join a sorority or whatever.
Aliens and outer space sci-fi, then one of the drive-in B movie,
a slasher movie.
Then a slasher movie, then a college kids movie from the 80s, and now it's going to be kind of a zombie movie.
Right. So the serial killer zombie comes up from the den mother's house. Mm-hmm. They don't show him yet.
That kind of reminds me of, there's a scene in Evil Dead 2 where they're playing an audio recording of the guy that was in the cabin before them, and he's talking about how he had to kill his wife. And at this point, they had thrown Bruce Campbell down in the cellar, and Bruce Campbell can hear what they're listening to. And the guy's talking about how his wife got possessed, and he had to bury her in the cellar. Oh. And as he says that, whoosh, she comes up from the earthen ground of the cellar and starts chasing Bruce Campbell around. That's kind of what it reminded me of, the way that they did that.
Well, what I was going to say is they didn't show the serial killer's, the axe murderer's face very much, like as going back to kind of the beginning when Beth's calling for Johnny in the woods. You see him coming up behind her, but they don't really show his you don't show his face too well. When he rises from the dead, they don't really show his face at that point. At this point, let's see, Cynthia has asked Chris out for the the formal or whatever, a homecoming dance, whatever it is. So yippee, he's on cloud nine.
I believe they were calling it a formal.
Okay, fine. Way to be so formal about it. He's all dressed up. He's going to meet her, and I think this is right about the time when Detective Cameron they get a call about some guy out in the back alley, and of course he sees him. And he kind of knows who he is, and this was the only thing.
So one of those slugs obviously got under there somehow,
and in fact, so they can. When they get you, they infect you, but apparently they can also infect and reanimate dead bodies. Which, come to think of it, I guess they did. He was the only one that they really showed. I don't think they really showed any other dead people coming back. It was.
What about when they went into the cemetery?
That's what I'm saying. He's the only one I remember. They go. Yeah, they. They emphasize obviously that it did it with the serial killer, so it can do it. But they didn't really have a lot of undead people. It was freshly dead.
You
people.
Could say that at the end after that bus crash, they were all dead.
Yeah, but I assumed they were dead because they were affecting people while.
Well, they were dead after the crash, and then they went. They got infected afterwards.
I'm just saying, you didn't see super decomposed people aside from the serial killer.
It wasn't your typical zombie.
Whatevs. So this was the only thing I can kind of nitpick is, so they had where they see this guy. He's got an axe. He's they're in an alley. It looks like, and Detective Cameron's there, and he shoots him right in the head as soon as he turns around. And, of course, it just blows up, and you see a bunch of slugs come out. I almost wish they would have held that a little longer, like it was his...
But you did see it, right? You saw the full thing in his face, and he's like...
No, yeah, they showed it.
Like a zombied-out skeleton almost.
And I'm saying I wish they would have maybe not had him get killed again.
Maybe it's one of those things where you flash it because maybe if you lingered on it, you'd start to see it doesn't look that great, so you just blow it up right away, and then it looks good.
Probably, but what I'm getting at is from a story point of view, I wanted to see Detective Cameron have to face that demon again. Here's this guy that, killed his girl, he killed these people, and then finally he killed him, but almost like his worst fear is literally this guy coming back to life and killing again. I thought that would have been a good moment to kind of even build him up a little more, that I dealt with this guy. I was ready to put this behind me, and now I got to deal with him again. I almost wish they
puts him over the edge because at that point,
I just wish they wouldn't have had it happen so quick. So maybe it could just been a little more struggle to have to face that again.
Because he had so many flips the gas on his stove. And then that's when Chris kind of shows up and says, they got alfalfa, is that what he says?
Well, yeah, whatever. Little Rascal
tells him, we need to go take care of these things. So he flips the gas back off. They go and they get the flamethrower from Dick Miller, makes a cameo.
Yeah, you have Dick Miller. I'm going to need your standard flamethrower. And
that scene was great.
Yeah. I felt bad for Dick Miller. He looked so scared. I was I really felt bad for him. You know, I mean, he's just doing his job.
Basically, Dick Miller is playing another policeman at the place.
He's
where
like
they
the
keep
weapons locker.
firearms.
The weapons locker. Basically, any weapons they confiscate.
He's behind a chain link fence, and I guess he's supposed to hand out stuff, but you got to document it all.
Right.
Well, Tom Atkins, he wants the flamethrower and he wants it now.
Yeah, it's probably not only where they keep
to wait.
the heavy artillery for in case there wasn't a major emergency. Yeah. It's probably also where they collect anything anyone they busted or whatever. So yeah, he wants a flamethrower because he says, okay, we're got this plan. I'm gonna, one of us shoots the head, the other one hits the flamethrower. Okay, fine. I was like, why couldn't they just theoretically just fire them up? Because they did it and it worked. One time they show I think it was Cynthia. She fires the flamethrower right at the head, and it basically kills them there. It seems like almost like if you shoot them first, they have a chance to almost get away. You got to be right on it.
Well, they don't know that at the time,
I guess. So yes, they go to the girl's house, the sorority house, and
you have to get the shots of the girls getting ready because it's an 80s movie.
The girls are all getting ready. The guys are getting ready. Oh man, this one guy had this mustache and the little mullet, and he had these super thin sunglasses. It's hilarious. I'll try to find a clip of it.
Like Bebop?
Yes, exactly. That's great. Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. I was like, oh my goodness.
Well, that one guy at the beginning of the film also too, he had the caveman unibrow.
Yeah, but I mean, I almost wonder if they did that as a joke because JC makes fun of it. Yeah. But I mean, that you could tell
obvious.
That was
people that actually have unibrows. Usually, they aren't that much of a unibrow.
But yeah, that was just because it was cool at the time. But anyway, so
unibrows were cool at the time.
No,
or the glasses.
The glasses, man.
I don't remember unibrows being in style.
Yeah. So Chris gets a message from JC on a tape recorder.
Yeah. He exposites.
Yeah, he basically lets them know what they're doing inside the body. That you gotta. I think does he tell him to destroy the head or destroy them with fire?
He ends up finding the body down in the furnace, and
that's when he says Chris, I was able to walk. Basically, it was a little sad because like you said, this guy seemed like he was happy with himself, even though he wanted to walk. But the main thing he cared about was his friend being happy, and even then he said good luck with Cynthia, I love you.
Yeah.
Best of luck, He
was a great character.
Right. So...
And you really feel bad when he dies, because if anybody deserved to live, it just seemed like it was going to be him.
And then I was a little... So, he said he was down in, the boiler room or the cellar, and Chris runs down there. He sees him dead, but, what did he do? There was something on the floor there. It was
the slugs had come out and burned up because he was so close to the heat or whatever.
Okay, is that...
That's what I saw.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So, yeah, he basically, kind of killed him by... Maybe he put his head right on the boiler tank or whatever.
Something.
Okay. So, yeah. So, we're at the sorority house, finally. Detective Cameron, Chris, armed with a shotgun and a flamethrower, and they start getting invaded by the boyfriends. Now, zombified.
We get our tagline here, because Tom Atkins shows up.
Yes. Yeah, he had a few good lines.
He had a lot of good lines in this, I thought.
Hey, girls, I got some good news and bad news. The good news is your dates are here. What's the bad news?
The bad news is they're dead.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
So we get a few fights here. They switch weapons a lot. I didn't know why that was, but at one point, I think he has the flamethrower. He gives her the shotgun.
Yeah.
Detective Cameron goes in. He's got a revolver.
Yeah.
Next scene,
Cameron,
all of a sudden,
Chris and Cynthia just
going
through the house.
So he goes inside. He's clearing the house inside.
Yeah.
The kids are staying on the outside and taking care of business as the
they go in and they tell everybody to leave, get out of the house.
Yeah, you're right. He did, which
he kept saying that over and over again. Get out of the house.
Was that at that point? Because you think they'd be safer
inside. I think they were waiting
inside.
for him, and then they decided to go in to check anyway. And then when they went in, they ended up finding him in the basement.
Okay, all right, okay, maybe you're right.
So they find him in the basement, and when they pan over to the corner of the basement, that's where a wall of these things. He's got them.
Yeah, so they made this little point about how one of the girls was doing a lab experiment where they had these brains and
were in
she's
the basement, yes.
Store them downstairs, and I was like, but their brains without a body. What could the slugs do besides incubate it? I guess maybe that's all
they ate the brains. Who knows?
Yeah, or maybe they just used the brains. The brain, they didn't maybe even need a living body. I guess they didn't because they just needed the brain to incubate more of their kind or whatever. Yeah. Okay,
it reminded me of, again, Slither.
The way they were pulsing, that was kind of creepy looking.
That was cool.
That was a cool effect.
And like we were saying earlier, Slither really borrowed so much from this movie to the point where it almost ripped off. But I don't think so. But we can get into that later.
So
but there was that big the scene where there was a whole ton of them.
Yeah. So they run downstairs, and Detective Cameron, he has like duct tape over his mouth, which I was thinking like, they cover your mouth, and he's telling them to run, but then he takes it off so that he can count, and he's doing this very 30. 29.
Yeah.
And what's funny, so he's letting Chris know, like, okay, this is the rhythm I'm going. But then you see as Chris and them are running out, because he's spreading gasoline all over the floor. He's intending to blow himself up with the creatures. He's getting his lighter out, but he's letting the kids know, like, you got to get out of here. And as Chris has run out, he's doing the 18, 17, 16.
We kind of skipped over the part where the boyfriends become the zombies. So what happens is they're all getting ready for the formal. They're all dressed up. They're jumping around on the bus and having a good time. The bus driver sees a dog in the middle of the road.
Right.
And swerves
One of the best
to
looking
avoid
dogs. It was like the best looking effect ever.
Large Marge.
I'm being sarcastic. Okay.
So
it was
the dog
this
is
very
actually
terrible
a zombie
looking
too.
dog zombie puppet. And what's funny? Did you notice the bus driver's eyes when he sees the dog? He's like, "Whoa!" They actually made it look like they bulged out of his head, like almost like a large Marge. But
I heard
small.
some people talking about that, and it's like I don't remember seeing that.
It was hilarious. Like I was like, it was so unnecessary. So like, he sees this dog and he's going to swerve. It's like, like like Bugs Bunny ate some hot.
Well, large Marge.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they swerve. Bus tips over, and we assume they all die, and the slugs get into them.
Right.
From the dog, probably. Because the dog
because the dog walks in to the bus after it's crashed. He walks in.
So that's why they're all zombies now. So continue. Tom Atkins is about to blow everything up.
So I just thought it was funny how he was going like a much slower pace at the counting, but when Chris is doing it, he's 12, 11, 10.
He was going very slow.
But whatevs. The whole thing goes up. Seems like he's succeeded. And, he's kind of had this little, arc of kind of set out to do what he had to do. And he, felt like he didn't.
He was kind of redeeming himself in a way by saving everybody.
Yeah.
Sacrificing himself in the process.
And it's crazy because a lot of these, in a way, well, a big way, I would say this is definitely like an 80s teen movie. But they put the most emphasis and story and development on the older guy, the middle-aged guy. And that was just kind of unique. Maybe he's not supposed to be, but he became the main character.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens?
Let's see. So we blow up the frat house, and all these other cops I think come up. It seems like everything's all good.
But is it ever really?
No. We see Detective Cameron come out. He's charred to crap. He's a crisp.
Well, here's the thing too. Some of those slugs were coming straight at him when that happened too.
Right when he literally, he says he's about to say, I think, his last "thrill me," but I think they actually make it out as if Chris and him said it at the same time. Right. Like, 3.
That was
2,
kind of his catchphrase throughout
1,
the movie.
"Thrill me," but they show Chris say it. Because I think he's like, Detective Cameron.
So here's the thing. When he came out, did he seem okay? I know he was walking kind of weird. Like, because when Tom Hanks got blown up in the Burbs, it was the same thing.
That's pretty much what it is. Yeah,
But was he infected?
Yes. Because when he falls over, his head hits the concrete and splits open, and all these slugs, like 5 of them, come out, and they head right toward the cemetery, which is sad because he sacrificed himself, and he still kind of failed, and that's like a bummer, man. Like,
and then we see the cemetery, and then we see the light come down.
So this is the alternate ending.
Yeah, I found that out later.
There's 2 endings to this. The original ending is where everything's all kind of great and good. I think they just lead you to believe that Detective Cameron died in the blast, saved the day. Great.
So this would be the darker ending then.
To me, this is the better ending. So the other
the
ending,
one that we saw,
the one that me and you personally saw. We saw the spaceship ending. Then there's also the dog ending. The dog ending is where, as everything's kind of good and great. The dog comes up to her and she's like, petting him, and the dog opens up his mouth and a slug flies right into her mouth.
Oh, okay.
Cut to credits.
So either way, it's a darker ending.
It is a dark ending, but I think it would have been even worse to have her get, after all that, have her get, infected. So, yeah, the other ending is, like I said, Detective Cameron comes out.
This one, it kind of ties it back to the beginning.
And that's another reason I like it better, because it bookends the aliens. So you see that some slugs have ran into the local cemetery. Also, and you see the searchlight, and they kind of want you to think, like, maybe it's the cops in a helicopter, kind of, you don't hear the, blades, but all of a sudden you see it's the spacecraft. They have located where it landed, which took you...
Looks like they're trying to clean up whatever mess.
30 years?
Yeah. Maybe once they were inside the one dude's head, and they froze them, like they couldn't track them anymore, and then once they got out, like something, oh, look, sir.
Yeah, it took them almost 30 years, but they were coming to clean up the mess.
Yeah.
And so they're searching for it, and cut the credits. But I think that's the better ending.
All right, and that is Night of the Creeps. What did you like about this movie?
Well, what we basically were talking about mostly is that it's you got 3 different kinds of genres.
More than that, 4 or 5.
Yeah, at least. But I mean, I look at it as mainly 3. A little
they
bit
managed to roll
mini
it
sci-fi
all up into one package that felt solid.
Yeah, zombie stuff is not really my cup of tea. I think it was.
Well, you'll really enjoy our next episode then.
The other stuff that really made it work for me. You got a sci-fi, you got a slasher film, and you got the zombie
had a fair
film,
amount of comedy in
movie, 80s teen movie. Yeah,
it was a lot of poking fun at those genres itself.
Right.
It was self-aware. A lot of it was just paying homage to stuff.
There was a few lines from some of the secondary characters that was said that I just thought was funny, but one that sticks out to me is one of the girls. I'm so sure. Do you remember that? When Detective Cameron comes to knock on the door,
it's like an 80s thing, yeah.
And I've never heard that one. Just like, isn't one going to answer the door? I'm so sure. And she says it at least twice. I just thought that was pretty funny. I think another thing that was pretty good about it is where some movies, they start off really good and they kind of fall apart, in the third act. I think this one didn't start off bad. It wasn't like the opposite thing, but I think it picked up really nicely in the third act. Everything escalated right.
For me, it almost sloped a little.
Really? Oh, I disagree.
I think it started off good, then it kind of dipped a bit, and then it worked its way back up. But for me, I felt like maybe the pacing could have been a little better. I think part of the reason I feel that way is Chris is just such a whiny baby. He
wasn't the greatest leading man. That's why I kind of think as Detective Cameron was the leading guy. Yeah. But you can tell it's supposed to be him. But I feel.
But we do follow Chris quite a bit, and he's just always whining and complaining about something.
He's the original Rusty Griswold from European Vacation.
I knew he looked familiar, but it's funny. I agree with you. I like the spaceship ending better.
Final thoughts. I mean, it has a great blending of all this stuff. I think it was cool that the older guy was the main guy in a teen movie. Liked, just the, starting off at the 50s, then moving to the 80s. The 50s kind of came back in style in the 80s. You had a lot of, Huey Lewis in the News and Hall & Oates, kind of somewhat more Huey Lewis, bringing that a little bit of a doo-wop flavor to their sound.
Like the harder rock and roll.
Not so much that. What was it? If This Is It. That was the song.
Oh, with the movies, as far as that aspect goes, I think a lot of the filmmakers that were starting to get big around that time, a lot of them grew up watching those crappy B sci-fi movies and horror movies from the 50s. And that probably had a big influence on what they wanted to do once they were able to make movies.
I've heard, even Brittany's mom has told me, how, she grew up, she was an 80s kid, but how a lot of 50s stuff kind of started coming back in the 80s. So I thought that was cool to see those two. I mean, you got Back to the Future, obviously, that does that.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, because a lot of those people, they were probably born in or close to the 50s, so it takes them back to their childhood.
Right, I mean, look at...
Just like us, we love the 80s.
We love the 80s, and now you'll see, I'm starting to see even 90s things.
Yeah, there's a lot of 90s nostalgia now. And, look at Captain Marvel.
Yeah, there's even a little bit of 70s stuff coming back a little bit, too. It's all recycled. Nothing's new.
Cyclical.
So, anyway.
You make me cyclical.
Good one. So, I really like this movie, which is shocking. It doesn't seem like it would be my type, but I did like it. I thought, like I said...
It has a pretty big cult following.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I remember watching it back then and liking it.
It didn't do good when it came out, but thanks to the VHS rental craze of the 80s, a lot of people were exposed to it. A lot of movies back then, basically were made for video stores because they wouldn't hit the theater for a long time, for long periods of time, or make a ton of money there. But once they got to the video store, people would rent them like crazy, and I think that's what happened with this one.
Yeah, probably. But, it was fun. It didn't take itself too seriously. It was...
Yeah, it has its comedic moments. It's another... Right. We've covered quite a few of these where they're horror comedies, which is one of my favorite genres, although I think it's one that's harder to do because you have to balance the two in the right way.
Right.
You can lean heavy on one or the other, but if you don't do one right, then
I feel you.
But, yeah, we're doing that. And then our next movie, actually, is going to be another horror comedy.
Well, let's give it a letter grade here. How are you going to grade it?
Night of the Creeps, I think you might like it better than me. I'm going to give it a B. I felt that it was slow in some areas, but I like all the references it makes to things of the past.
Okay.
I like they took the cookie cutter storyline of a teen couple at makeout point seeing something from Spaceland.
Yeah.
There's so many movies that have that plot.
Right. I mean,
like Killer Clowns from Outer Space did that too, and it was also paying
Is it
tribute.
Plan 9 from Outer Space or whatever?
They actually play that in this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say that they reference it twice. Not only does the den mother watch it, but in 1959, I think they said there was one of the girls is like, "Oh, are you going with Billy to see Plan 9?"
Mm-hmm. There's also a scene where it probably is a reference to Plan 9 too, where one of the characters stops to smell a rose.
Okay, I was reading about that, but I didn't actually notice it in the film.
It was Tom Atkins.
Yeah, I was going to say it was
like
him.
When he was going to the sorority, he stopped, smelled a rose, and then went in. And that same thing happens in Plan 9. I have actually never seen Plan 9. I just heard that it is a reference.
Okay.
Maybe we should watch that one of these days.
Yeah. I am going to give this a B+.
Okay.
So anyway, thanks for tuning in for the first episode of 2019's Monster Month.
So next episode will be Return of the Living Dead. Not to be confused with The Killer Tomatoes.
Yes.
Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Check us out, Facebook, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube. Hit us up in Podomatic. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to travel through time. I bid you adieu.
Don't stop now! You can't go! All the plants are gonna die!
Where are you going? I've got to return some videotapes.
Bye, Felicia.
Was our Ketchup episode made out of the Killer Tomatoes?
Yes, it was. Okay. You let me fondle your breast?